Act 1. We open with a spider crawling slowly across its web. A fly comes buzzing by, the spider quickly noticing stills itself, waiting for the right moment. The fly loops lazily almost, ever closer. Still wrapped tension from the spider, unmoving, wound to the breaking point. The fly edges closer, closer still, until the spider pounces. We cut to Jinx opening the door to her room in the Sticks Inn bar. She huffs in, stretching and tossing her hat onto the bed. She turns and hangs her jacket on the back of the door before flopping down onto the mattress. That is the last time I let Cherry choose the getaway vehicle. I don't care if it's gonna blend into the area. A fucking rickshaw? She holds up her hand toward the ceiling, looking at it. I don't think the handles had any varnish on them either. I'm gonna be digging splinters out of my hands for a while. Her gaze falls past her roughened hands to the ceiling, where we see the spider has finished its meal and is now waiting in its web. Okay, buddy. I appreciate you dealing with the pests in here, but let's get you back outside, Jinx says as she swings herself back to her feet. She steps up onto the bed and reaches up with her hands carefully. Come here, little guy. Gal? I never really looked too close at y'all because you still give me the heebie-jeebies, even though I will admit I'm learning a bit of a mutual respect for you. After all, we are both pest removal in our own ways. Jinx slowly and carefully, as to not scare or harm it, scoops it into her palm. See, that's not so bad, right? The spider slowly turns in Jinx's palm to meet her fiery eyes with its own stone-cold, beady stare, with all too many of its own eyes. Ugh. Jinx shivers audibly. And now, I'm talking to a house spider, she remarks to herself as she turns and slowly begins to make her way outside the Sticks Inn bar. As she walked, she could feel the spider on her bare palm and was careful not to jostle or frighten it, as she kept her hands cupped around it. Finally, downstairs and out of the door, she walks to a nearby rosebush and opens her hands to let the spider out. It doesn't seem to move for a moment, then slowly turns once more to match Jinx's gaze. What's wrong, dude? There's plenty of bugs in there for you. It'll be safer, too. We don't want anyone out here thinking you're part of the spider mafia, so it's probably best to stay outside from now on. The spider stares back, unmoving. And I'm talking to it again. Jesus, I must be tired. Just then, a loud car horn is heard nearby as someone starts to shout at someone else for running out into the road a few feet behind Jinx, causing her to jump. The spider, in a panic, bites down on Jinx's palm painfully, adding to the shock of the moment, causing her to instinctually drop the spider right on the ground next to the bush. Rage floods Jinx in a moment, as the crack that had been forming in the Nukes family crest flares with bright red light and writhing shadow, forcing it ever so slightly wider. She, in an instant, pulls her pistol and aims it right at the spider, her eyes flaring so bright for but a moment that they look like they should burn right out of her skull. But Jinx grasps control at the last second. Electo's pure rage was bubbling up, unchained, unintentional. It was a feeling she had nearly forgotten, like when she had first become a host for Electo. She was lashing out, despite her intentions, at anything and everything within arm's reach. It was just scared. It clearly didn't mean any harm, or would have attacked me at any point before that, Jinx thought to herself, trying to regain control over the emotional spike. The pistol barrel shakes, unfiring for the moment as the internal struggle in Jinx's mind toiled. Just then, the spider, still standing resolute but an inch from the barrel, began to move. It began to wave its forearms in a pleading, almost apologetic way. And like a light switch had been flipped, the spike in rage dropped, the glow receding rapidly from both the crack in the crest and Jinx's eyes. The arm holding the pistol dropped to her side as she leaned forward and grasped her knees, gasping, sweat dripping down her arms and face. You know, you may have just saved your ass there, buddy, Jinx says, raising her gaze to meet the spider once more. The spider itself seems to cock its head to the side, almost as if understanding her words. then waves one forearm again as if waving goodbye, before skittering into the recesses of the rosebush out of sight. Okay, time to get back to bed and relax. Jinx re-enters her room and flops back down onto the bed. She holds up her hand once more towards the ceiling, idly staring at the two small pinpricks of red on her palm. What a strange spider, she remarked to herself, as her gaze fell back to behind her hand, at the strange, intricately decorated purple and green envelope with her name written on it in a fine silver ink that is now neatly woven into the recently vacated spiderweb on her ceiling. Huh. Act 2. Hours pass. Terra's synth sun is shifted to the other side of Terra, eclipsing dayside into its night, and bringing about the even darker hours of Nightside's daily cycle. Jinx quickly turns down a darkened alley, pulling herself to the shadows along the wall around the corner, and holds her breath. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4... 3 red-suited goons go rushing by the alleyway entrance, running rapidly down the sidewalk further. Jinx silently lets her held breath out as she glances back at the purple letter folded in her hand, with its intricate fine silver filigree. She didn't need to open it. She'd read it enough over the past few hours as she deliberated on whether or not to follow its instructions that she had memorized every sentence. 1. Don't be followed. Jinx glanced ever so slightly down the sidewalk the direction the warlord's goons ran. She could see a sliver of them continuing down the street, pushing past pedestrians in the distance. One of them grabs a person as they approach and spins them around, pulling their hat off. Hey man, what the hell? Nah, it's not her, the goon says to the other, throwing the pedestrian aside nearly into the street. Jinx scowled and spit in their general direction, before pulling her hood up and tucking in her hair. She'd seen their faces, gotten their scent. She'd make sure to pay them a visit after she was done. For now, though, she'd have to hope the hoodie she stole from Cherry would keep her people from recognizing her as easily. Jinx turned and began further down the alley, more casually now, adding a hunch to her gait for good measure. The second line of the letter, still gripped in her hand, rang through her mind. 2. My parlor lies within the wisdom goddess's loom, lain abandoned for all to view. Embroiled with those whom you might call foes, this will be your only clue. Turning through some side streets, then blending with the rest of the crowd of pedestrians, Jinx quickly made a beeline through street after street. Luckily, not drawing any more attention till turning one final corner, she saw it. Warped and aged like the fossil of a massive ancient iron and concrete dinosaur, with its old sign hanging above the ruins at an angle almost pantomiming the blade of a massive guillotine. Olive Tree Textiles. According to the research Jinx did on the place, it was a massive income source for the warlord, making and distributing suits and clothes and fabric over the table. But under the table, it was a massive, unsanctioned gambling ring, hidden from the eye of the Nemesis family, who ensures there is no rigging in games of chance or skill. After an anonymous informant sent evidence to the Nemesis family of it, the fortunate herself, godmother of the family, showed up to deal with it. No one really knows what exactly happened, but the street camera footage of that day shows the fortunate walking down the road, accompanied by her guards, sitting on a bench across the street while smoking a scab from her fancy holder. Then about 45 seconds later, the entire building was rocked from below by a massive explosion that's source was never truly discovered. Ever since, it's been left to ruin and never reclaimed. At least it seemed that way. Jinx quickly shook herself of the majesty this mysterious relic from an era even before she came up from Terra gave, and trudged toward it carefully. She turned around a corner deeper into the ruins, stepping around bits of scorched and crumbled rubble left decades after the blast. A massive piece of rubble falls from a crumbled pillar above, shattering against the ground. Jinx instinctively pulls her pistol in its direction, eyes and crest flaring red, only to find her hand holding the purple letter, confusing her for a second. 3. Bring no one with you, and come unarmed. Should you not come alone, or bring any form of weaponry with you, you will never find me. This will be your only warning. Fuck me, Jinx sighs in exasperation, putting the letter back in her pocket and continuing to look around. Turning a corner, Jinx saw the sign she'd been looking for. Should you follow these steps, you will see my welcome mat. Simply knock and I'll get the door for you. I might have a solution to your escalating anger problems. There, among the dirt and debris on the ground, was a mat woven of intricate and innumerous spider webs, giving it a nearly glass or crystal delicacy that simply stated, "Welcome." Right in front of a heavy iron door in the wall of a non-crumbled section of the building. Well, here goes nothing. Jinx waited for a second, then another. She reached for the door again to knock a second time when it swung open just as she reached, finding it opening to a winding staircase spiraling upwards. Ah, it is good to see you got my invitation. Come, I have tea ready. Let us speak inside. The woman who stood up just a few of the stairs was beautiful in an elegant and mysterious, but as Jinx aptly recognized, dangerous way. Her hair was longer down her back, with one smaller braid framing each side of her masked face. The mask itself, a porcelain one, simple and curved like a minimalist comedy mask, with a thin, happy curve of a smile, and squinting, joyful eyes, both simple black shapes on the smooth white mask. Her robes were an elegant mix of a kimono and an ancient Greek tunic, cast in unbelievably fine silks of silver and deep purple, flowing down around her weightless almost, like a waterfall or a ghostly apparition. Before Jinx could respond, the woman turned and ascended up the stairs out of sight, her lace-gloved hand beckoning for a moment as she left, the voice calling from underneath the mask once more. "Please, step into my parlor," said the spider to the bat. Act 3. The door to Arachne's parlor swung open with the slightest of creaks, revealing the pleasant aroma of a recently steeped exotic-smelling tea, closely followed by the sight of a rather well-kept room. Ornate black Victorian furniture made of a dark purple wood draped in intricate silver lace filled the room in a more cozy than cluttered way. Arachne stepped in and beckoned once more, looking over her shoulder. "Please, come in. Surely you must be tired from your travel. Have a seat. Relax. I mean you no harm. Let me pour you some tea. No one will find us here, that I can assure you." Jinx plopped down into one of the plush parlor chairs next to the small table. "Of course, I'll take some tea if it's not a bother." Arachne nods behind her immutable mask and begins to pour from an ornate tea set. The ever-lingering smile upon its porcelain almost seems to deepen, but Jinx rubbed her eyes and it was gone. Jinx takes a sip from her tea as Arachne begins to pour her own. Sweet like honey, with a more complex herbal base that Jinx had never tasted before. Not bad. Then she set her cup back in her saucer on the table. "Though, I'd hazard enough of a guess you didn't just invite me over for a gossip session. After all, you haven't met anyone in person for over 500 years. Just letters delivered by the Spider Mafia." Arachne's hands stilled for a moment, her cup only half full. "Well, well, well, you are a clever one. Did some research, did we?" she returned as she finished filling her cup, perching on the other chair by the small table and folding her hands in front of herself. "I don't tend to go meet someone as legendary as the great goddess Arachne, mistress of the Spider Mafia herself, without doing my due diligence beforehand." Arachne's next line came out with just a hint of bitterness as Jinx took another sip of tea. "Please, I'm no god. Though you are right, this is somewhat business more than pleasure. You see, the Nukes family did me a good turn a long while back, and a good turn deserves another. The particular member of the Nukes family I won't disclose, confidentiality and all that, though they were of high standing and had many enemies. However, rather than ask me for blackmail on their foes or the location of any of the various secret hideouts and stash points that they could take advantage of, they consulted with the Oracle on Dayside. and afterwards, rather shaken, requested that. As Arachne's finger uncurled slowly and daintily to point directly at Jinx's chest. That crest was designed to trap and hold an entity that they said would decide the fate of Nightside City, and possibly the very gods themselves. And from the look on their face, I believed them. They refused to go into more detail other than the request that it be made as strong as possible. Still in their debt, I did as asked and wove them an artifact incorporating the very shadows of Tartarus and their own blood, and wove them a web capable of capturing even Kronos himself. And you, somehow, are breaking it. While I don't doubt Alecto's unending resistance and pressure would be a problem for any design meant to hold her down, if given enough time, this is progressing much faster than even I would have anticipated. It's clearer to me now that there were some flaws in the design, Arachne said as she reached across the table and traced the cracks with her finger. It hasn't been too bad, Jinx lied. Just some foul moods and such. I assure you there's nothing to worry about. Arachne laughed more audibly now. Is that so? Well, while I appreciate your concern, a little someone said otherwise. Perhaps you know each other. Arachne held up her hand, palm first, and down from the shadows along the rafters repelled a familiar spider. The same green one she had removed from her room, and subsequently nearly blown to pieces earlier that night. It turned in Arachne's palm after landing daintily to meet Jinx's fiery gaze once more, waving one of its forelegs in a near-greeting motion. Okay, maybe there have been some flare-ups, Jinx begrudged. But I still don't get why you seem so interested in helping me. I get paying your debts to whoever this was, but that's done and over with, and has nothing to do with me. Why go through the risk of leading me to your parlor in person? Because if you're the entity that will decide the fate of the gods, then I want you for myself. Lightning fast, Arachne's hand slid a blade hidden within her robe sleeve out and slashed with it, striking through Jinx's teacup and spilling the last few dregs across her face. Jinx tumbled as she tipped her chair backwards to avoid the strike, causing it to only slightly graze the crest and cut a hole in the swimsuit around it. Shit, Arachne, stop! But Arachne wasn't listening. She lunged across the table, blade first. Jinx, lifting her chair like a lion tamer, glanced the blow aside. I've had enough of the gods treading over mortals like fodder, lofting themselves as higher than thou, better than thou, more worthy than thou, even when they're not! You might just be the key to me proving that to them. Arachne advanced in measured steps, a predator slowly backing its prey into a corner, holding her stiletto dagger so thin it was nigh invisible. The crack in the crest flared at the encroaching danger, but Jinx swallowed hard, forcing it back down. Arachne, listen to me. Huh? Jinx's tongue went numb mid-sentence, the feeling creeping rapidly through the rest of her mouth and voice box. There we go. Took quite a lot longer than I thought to kick in. She looked over Jinx's unchanged posture with the unseen eye of a predator sizing up its prey. So this is what this feels like, Jinx thought to herself. Quite the tolerance to toxins, it seems. The amount you drank would have paralyzed a fully grown manticore. But at least now I won't have to hear your honeyed drivel while I finish this. Arachne hissed as she rushed at Jinx once more. Shit, thought Jinx. So much for talk. Of course it was poisoned. Though, if I can keep her busy long enough, it'll get purged from my system. I don't want to kill her, not after knowing her story, so it's too risky to let Alecto out. But maybe I can buy some time using the rage the crest is leaking. Jinx keeps a grip on the rage flowing from the crest, but lets its leash out a bit. Showtime. As Arachne rushed forward, Jinx throws her chair at her, blocking her view for a moment, as she deflects it. However, after the moment of distraction, Jinx is nowhere to be seen. Arachne looks down just in time to see Jinx sliding into her legs with a clothesline, sending her flipping forward with her momentum onto her back. Arachne quickly scrambles back to her feet, unnaturally righting herself, hissing in anger. Movement visible under the flowing fabric of her robes. She turns as Jinx runs to the other side of the room, quickly grabbing a stack of small tea saucers from the china cabinet next to the tea set. Arachne tilts her head to the side and lowers her guard as she approaches calmly. Jinx begins to throw the plates at Arachne, one by one like throwing stars, each one getting shattered in the air by Arachne's lightning-fast swipes of her stiletto. You fight back, but you're restraining yourself. That's not the fury I've heard about, Arachne said as she closed the distance slowly. Alecto, the unceasing anger, the tormentor of passions. I will carve you out of that vessel. Hide as you might, I'll weave you up snug in a web of my own, and you will be the instrument to my justice. The crack in the crest flared more at Arachne's declaration, shooting ever further through it and opening ever wider. Jinx swung a wild spinning punch as Arachne got close enough, which Arachne predictably dodged. Just before Jinx's unnoticed backhand came around from the spin and smashed the teapot into Arachne's face, tea and porcelain flying in an explosion. Jinx, once more obscured, took the chance to dodge around her and rush for the door, which was now completely covered in a near 2-foot-thick solid weaving of spiderwebs. It's rude to leave a party early, darling. We're just getting started, Arachne stated from behind Jinx, followed by the sound of ripping fabric. Jinx turned around to behold the true form of Arachne, mistress of the spider mafia. The gossamer silks of her robes now ripped apart at the back, as 4 massive spider-like legs, now no longer bound within her robes, were sprouting from her back, and flicking bits of ruined fabric from themselves. Arachne then tilted her head to look over her shoulder at Jinx, a large shard of her mask now missing from the left side and revealing multiple dark and beady eyes underneath. She reached up and removed the rest of the mask, revealing a monstrous maw with fangs and mandibles, as well as 8 individual dark eyes. Won't you stay for a bite? Jinx trembled in fear for but a moment before another burst of rage shook her from it. Shaking off the fright, Jinx had an idea. She quickly grabbed the drapes from a nearby window and rushed Arachne. Arachne stabbed her stiletto at Jinx, but Jinx caught it and wrapped it up further in the fabric, trapping it within the drapery. Arachne, however, quickly dropped another identical stiletto from her other sleeve and swung towards Jinx with it. Jinx tried to kick out one of her legs to throw her off, but one of the other spider legs caught her before she fell, the second stiletto striking mostly true and digging deep into Jinx's bicep. Eyes flaring, rage flashing, and gritting through the pain, Jinx wrenches her own arm out of the socket, then pins her arm against her body to pin that blade in place too. Face to face, Jinx met Arachne's eyes, feeling the rage reaching a peak point, and tried for all her intent to show that she didn't want to do this. But Arachne only saw an opening. Lightning fast, Arachne's hand gripped the Nukes family crest, and shattered it. Act 4. There is just a moment of stillness before the explosion of shadows and red light, howling in tones that sounded so inhuman and angry it would trigger your fight or flight just from hearing it, erupts from the center of the room. So bright and vibrant that it seemed the entire room was only made of red light and shadow, and 2 vague silhouettes in the center. The cobwebs around the room are ripped from their positions and shredded in the force of the wind, as nearby papers and objects are thrown away from Jinx and Arachne. Dust and debris fill the room, obscuring any sight. And as the dust settles, there is stillness. Arachne and Jinx still locked in close quarters, a clumped silhouette, though unmoving. Jinx, now with the crown of Alecto above her head, breaks the still silence. I'm sorry. As she pulls from the embrace she is giving Arachne and holding her at arm's length, rage somehow not present. What? I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all you've been put through. Sorry you've suffered for so long, trapped in an immortal life you despise. What do you mean? Your story. Like I said, I did some research, and I was gonna bring this up before you poisoned me, but you were mistreated. Mistreated? Mistreated? Sorry? I'm trying to kill you. You're a fury. You're a god of vengeance. The one who fights the gods' battles. Well, here I am. The one who defied the gods, made monster for it. Do your job and enact my punishment. Arachne exclaims in anger, pulling her stiletto from Jinx's arm and preparing to drive it into her chest. But she stops short. Her hand trembling, the blade just barely touching Jinx's skin around the area where the crest was. What makes you think I want your apologies? Arachne said shakily. You don't. But what you may not realize is that I can offer what you seek, and we've both been changed by Athena. What? Many know the Furies as the Arachnes, or Vengeful Ones. But after a fateful encounter with Athena in eons past, who was attempting to bar our way to a target on our list, she proved to us that there's an act that should always take precedence over vengeance. And that is the act of amends. Should one be willing to make amends for the deeds that they had done, then forgiveness should always outweigh vengeance. But I haven't done anything wrong. My tapestry was... It was perfect, I know. It depicted a side of the gods they themselves dislike. So despite its fairness and truth, she lashed out, unable to accept, perhaps for the first time, a valid criticism from a mortal that the criticism in itself bared no flaws, and chose to punish you unjustly for the mild act of hubris beforehand. Arachne tensed. But know this, while she may not have made amends, she has made me and my sisters beings that seek either amends or vengeance for the wronged. And you, my sweet spider, have been wronged. So I offer you an olive branch of my own. If you join the Nukes family, I can personally guarantee you that we will seek that she makes amends. And should she be so foolish as to not see her wrongs, then I will fulfill the other half of my duty, and I will extract her debt in Golden Ichor. But I'm a monster. I wouldn't be welcome. People would always be plotting against me. I've always worked better off alone. Listen, the new boss has changed things for the better. I'm sure you've seen. Many of the Nukes family values and morals have changed since the new boss. Many people have walked because of differing beliefs now from how the old boss ran things, sure, but we're growing that number back and we're doing it our way. The right way. We are a family without judgment, who looks out for the good and ensures the evil don't sleep well at night. We want Nightside City to be a place for people of all shapes and sizes, pointy teeth or not. Hell, if you're a monster, then what does that make me? Jinx said as she splayed her claws in one hand and pulled her eyelid down on the other, blood tears running down her finger like a tiny wine waterfall. Besides, you've been wronged, and that I won't stand idly by and let happen. It's in my nature. So you have my word, as I swear upon the river Styx that I will get you your rightful recompense, one way or another. The shadows of the Styx, ever present in all living things, swelled up at her words, seeming to take the form of manacles that bind around her wrists and neck, before fading into nothingness. Arachne's 8 eyes swelled in surprise at the show of dedication. As the goddess of oaths, swearing on the river Styx carries great weight. Should you break such an oath, you will bring the wrath of many gods who are in her favor, much of which are close friends or superiors of yours. I'm well aware of the risks, Jinx shivers. Even I had been contained by her permanently until I had a willing host here with, well, myself? God, 2 sets of memories is kinda hard to parse sometimes. But either way, don't discount what I said earlier. You're equal to a god in my eyes, and I'll stand toe-to-toe with Athena herself if it means getting you your justice. But in the meantime, Jinx lets go of the embrace she's been holding Arachne in. I gotta figure something out fast, 'cause I can feel the rage creeping back in, and unless you have another one of those crests, I'm gonna need a Stygian steel cage to transport me back to the Styx Inn bar. Otherwise I might snap at some dude for catcalling me and paint the walls behind him with his blood. Arachne stepped back a bit and sniffled. She turned and walked to a drawer on the side of the room as she wiped a tear from one of her many eyes. Opening it, she pulled out another identical porcelain mask to her original one and put it on. You don't have to do that, you know. I don't mind either way, Jinx offered. But Arachne kept her back to Jinx as she took a deep breath and said, "While I appreciate the gesture, I do have some appearances to keep up. So just a moment while I regain myself." As she said this, she took a few deep breaths, and the crackling of bones and exoskeleton was accompanied by the extra 4 spider legs forcing themselves back into the robes and adjusting themselves till they were once again not visible even along the form-fitting areas of her clothing. As the last few cracks and snaps happened, Arachne placed the mask back onto her face. As she turned around, the mask's unwavering smile smiled right back at Jinx. She saw the empathetic grimace from her. "What? Beauty is pain sometimes. About your problem, I do think I have an idea. It's untested, but your words tonight may have just answered a question that I've had for a very long time. So let's see if it works, why don't we? Hell, no better a time to try than now." Arachne pulls out an old weaving loom and sets it on the small table that had, up until recently, had the tea set on it. Now, Alecto is an unceasing force, and by being so, she is essentially a never-ending source of pressure and magical build-up when it comes to containment. That is why, like I said earlier, that one was likely failing, albeit quicker than expected. But that's just it. I've been so focused on controlling and containing that I kept going further and further into the durability and longevity of the weaving, instead of looking at it from a different angle. Arachne began moving at a lightning pace with a precision Jinx had never seen before. It was like watching a piece of heavy machinery at work, weaving golden threads so rapidly the form began to take shape as Arachne continued to talk. Before, it was all about repression, holding down an explosion, if you will. The issue was, the explosion was sentient and intelligent. It would look for cracks or weak points and focus its strength there, or even become stronger from repeated attempts to evolve its tactics. But this one's more symbiotic. The weaving began to take on the form of an intricate golden brooch with 8 legs. Rather than one having will and say over the other at any given time, this will wrap you both up together, like a cocoon, equal parts both fully there, and rather than overpowering one or the other, it's more like switching to another camera, one always raising the other to match its level. Now, this could be a problem if you weren't already a rather durable vessel. It could cause you to be drawn too thin and shatter your body, as you need to be able to fully incarnate 2 full souls at once, one of which being, again, an unceasing force. Though, the fact that you incarnated Alecto ever originally without combusting, along with how frequently you two switched back and forth in the past, you should be more tempered than any vessel ever has been before. I think this might work. Just a few touches there, a few here. What color were your eyes before incarnating? Green? Okay, that should help it keep the balance between the two of you. And done. Arachne held up a solid golden brooch in the shape of a spider, with a large green gem in the middle and 1 green gem and 1 red gem for the eyes. It looks pretty. Do I gotta shove this one into my chest too, or can I just wear this one like a necklace? Jinx joked. This one can be just worn, though I'd recommend keeping it on for a while, at least, to let yourself adjust to it. Physically, it's gonna be pretty different than you've gotten used to this past year. Your physique will be fairly changed, so don't do anything too crazy until you've readjusted. I had to work some of my own unique weaving patterns in here as well to ensure utmost flexibility and strength, so there will likely be some more spidery bits, but I'm sure a clever girl like yourself can find a way to take advantage of that. It means a ton to me that you're doing this on such short notice, Arachne. You're bleeding your glowing blood all over my furniture. My room is a total mess, and you have an unbridled fury loose within you, all of which is my fault. So yeah, I'm gonna do this for you, and we're getting it done now so you have time to adjust to the immediate changes. Then, you make your way out of here. You should look different enough from the new form that as long as you hide your hair, no one should recognize you. Arachne holds up her hand once more. The small green spider from before lowers down from the ceilings and lands on her palm. This time as it lands, however, it seemingly does a little dance and waves at Jinx. Also, I'll have you bring Basket here along with you. She's a green lynx spider. They're a species that prefers to hunt down and pounce on prey rather than spin webs to catch them. Perhaps in that regard you two have something in common. She seems to trust you enough. So, she will keep an eye on you for me. This location is already fairly trashed, so even if the noise didn't give it away that something is up here, it's a mess. So I'll be moving to a new parlor within a day. If you need to contact me, just let Basket know. She can always find me. And if the more spidery bits take hold, in time, maybe you might learn to tap into my web yourself. That being said, though, if you would please put this on so we can see how this works. The first few psychological changes will be the most intense, but it will only take about an hour, so you will likely want to sleep to recover the energy spent during it, or you'll be dead tired after. Arachne handed Jinx the completed brooch, now dangling from a choker made of fine red string looped decoratively and held in a shape with a purple gem. Jinx nodded and put it around her neck, and fell into a much-needed rest after the day's debacle. When Jinx awoke, she shot upright and turned to see Arachne with reading glasses perched over her mask, holding a book sitting at the desk. Don't worry, I wasn't going to turncoat and get you while you slept, though I don't blame you for thinking it. You look good. See for yourself. Arachne motioned towards the long vanity mirror on the opposite side of the room. Jinx got up, slightly off balance at first, but catches herself on the back of the love seat. She eventually gains her stride without needing to support herself on something and approaches the mirror. Oh, wow, Jinx said as she gazed into it. Nearly everything was the same, but different. Just different enough that for a few seconds she actually didn't realize she was looking at herself. Then she spotted the streak of purple hair and it was immediately obvious. She held her hands up and smiled, her teeth still all sharp, but her eyes were back to green. The same vibrant green they were before her incarnation. Immediately worried as she didn't feel any fury from Alecto, her heart picked up pace, but before she could react beyond that, a voice creeped into her mind, clear as day, and without the usual rage that accompanied it. Don't worry, I'm still here. As her eyes flashed red for a moment. Just checking out the new digs. Lots of room in here. I think I like it. She breathed a sigh of relief, and just as she breathed back in, a piece of dust flew up her nose. Phew! The popping and crackling of bone and exoskeleton led to what felt like when you unclog your sinuses, and the pressure all fixes itself, but throughout her whole body. Smiling at the feeling, Jinx opened her eyes and nearly shat herself. She now had 4 extra spider arms, much like Arachne's, reaching around from her back. Arachne giggled a bit to herself behind her mask and glasses, and turned to look at Basket, who was perched on the table next to where Jinx was sleeping. Looks like you chose well. We've got ourselves a green Jinx spider. Jinx looked back at Arachne for a bit of assistance, unsure what to do. A little help? After a bit of directing, and a bit of manual assistance, Jinx managed to learn how to lay the spider legs against her side under the clothing, and how to make them mimic her movements as she walked. Arachne finally turned Jinx around and spun her a few times, ending with letting her go as she found her own footing while dizzy. No spider legs slipped out. Arachne turned and looked at Basket, who seemed to nod back. Okay, time for you to get back to the Sticks End bar. I'll send word ahead so you don't catch them by surprise when you arrive with your new appearance. Jinx nodded and stepped forward, embracing Arachne once more. I meant every ounce of what I said. You were wronged for the heinous act of being right where most aren't. That's not a crime. And I can promise you we will get you your justice. Arachne held Jinx for a moment before pulling her to arm's length. You damn well better. After all, I'm trusting a god, something I don't do lightly. Hey, I might be a god, but I'm also immortal. Don't forget that, because I never will. And with that, Jinx turned to descend the winding staircase from Arachne's parlor, as Arachne closed the door behind. Oh wait, I never checked. Jinx grabbed for her chest to see if she'd managed to gain any assets in this transaction, and was met with the dull thud that she was used to. God's fucking damn it!